In a world striving for equality and fairness, few issues strike at the core of personal identity and family structure as deeply as paternity fraud. The assertion that men are at a systemic disadvantage in certain areas, such as discovering whether a child is biologically theirs, has gained traction in recent years. One proposed solution to this issue is the mandatory implementation of paternity tests at birth. Advocates argue that such a policy would protect men from deception, ensure that children grow up knowing their true heritage, and lead to greater transparency in family dynamics. While some may view this as a controversial proposition, examining the data, historical context, anecdotes, and ethical implications presents a more nuanced understanding of why this discussion matters. Paternity fraud, wherein a man is falsely led to believe that he is the biological father of a child, has been a societal issue for centuries. In ancient times, lineage and inheritance were often tied to biological relationships, making the consequences of deception significant. As far back as ancient Roman law, pater est quem nuptiae demonstrant, the presumption that the husband of a mother is the legal father of her child, held sway. However, even the Romans recognized the potential for this presumption to be flawed, as evidenced by their acknowledgement of adoption and other legal mechanisms to rectify errors in parentage. Fast forward to today, the advent of modern DNA testing has revolutionized our ability to establish biological relationships with near-perfect accuracy. But despite these technological advances, the legal and cultural systems in many parts of the world still rely on presumptions of paternity, often to the detriment of men. Studies suggest that around 3–10% of children are born from extramarital affairs, with many men unwittingly raising children who are not biologically theirs. Though this may seem like a small percentage, the personal impact on the men involved can be devastating. In countries like the United States, family courts typically favor the mother in custody and child support cases, operating under the presumption that the man named on the birth certificate is the biological father. In cases where paternity fraud is discovered, men are often still required to pay child support, even when DNA evidence proves they are not the biological parent. This has led to growing calls for reforms to protect men from such injustices. For example, the National Parents Organization has lobbied for mandatory paternity testing at birth, emphasizing that this would prevent many of the emotional and financial hardships men currently face. At the heart of the debate is a question of fairness. Is it just for a man to bear the emotional and financial responsibilities of fatherhood if the child is not biologically his? Critics of the current system argue that the rights of men are being overlooked in favor of maintaining a false sense of family stability. In cases of paternity fraud, the deception can leave men feeling betrayed and manipulated, while also damaging their relationships with the child they believe to be their own. A mandatory paternity test at birth would act as a preventive measure against such scenarios. It would provide men with the assurance that they are the biological fathers from the start, fostering greater trust and transparency within the family unit. This, in turn, could lead to more stable and honest relationships between parents and between fathers and their children. As one father recounted in an interview, "I raised my son for 15 years before I found out he wasn't mine. I love him, but the betrayal has haunted me. A paternity test at birth could have spared me a lot of pain." While some might argue that such tests could destabilize families or offend mothers by implying a lack of trust, proponents believe the benefits far outweigh these concerns. In fact, mandatory testing would remove the stigma and awkwardness often associated with paternity verification. Rather than being seen as an accusation, it would be a standard procedure that applies equally to all births, ensuring fairness for everyone involved. One of the most compelling arguments for mandatory paternity testing is that it promotes gender equality in the family. For too long, men's rights in the realm of parentage have been treated as secondary to the rights of women. In many legal systems, women are automatically granted custody of children and are often believed without question when they declare a child's paternity. Men, on the other hand, have fewer protections and recourse if they are deceived. This systemic imbalance was highlighted in a 2015 case where a Texas man was ordered to pay $65,000 in back child support for a child that DNA tests later proved was not his. Even after the biological father was found, the court refused to absolve him of the payments because he had assumed the role of father. Such cases illustrate the dire need for legal reforms to ensure that both men and women are equally accountable and protected under the law. Mandatory paternity testing would level the playing field by giving men the same certainty about their parental status that women inherently possess. After all, while a mother knows with absolute certainty that a child is hers, the father relies on the mother's word, a situation ripe for potential deception. By instituting mandatory testing, we ensure that both parents enter into the responsibilities of parenthood on equal footing. The call for mandatory paternity testing at birth represents a broader shift toward transparency, accountability, and fairness in family law. As our understanding of biology and genetics has advanced, so too should our legal frameworks adapt to reflect these new realities. Currently, several countries are grappling with this issue. In France, for example, paternity testing without the mother's consent is illegal, a law intended to preserve family stability but one that some critics argue perpetuates deception. In contrast, countries like Germany have taken steps to make paternity testing more accessible to fathers who wish to confirm their child's biological origins. Implementing mandatory testing in countries like the United States would require careful consideration of privacy and consent issues. However, proponents believe that the benefits of protecting men from fraud, ensuring children know their true parentage, and promoting trust in relationships far outweigh any potential drawbacks. Mandatory paternity testing at birth is a bold but necessary step toward protecting the rights of men, children, and families as a whole. It would eliminate the possibility of paternity fraud, create more transparent family dynamics, and promote equality between men and women in matters of parentage. While some may view this proposal as radical, it is, in fact, a reflection of the need for our legal systems to evolve in line with modern technology and societal values. In the words of legal scholar Charles P. Kindregan, family law must move from presumption to proof. Mandatory paternity testing offers that proof, ensuring that the foundations of family are built not on assumption, but on truth. We are in the 21st century and the laws should be aligned with the technological advancements.